What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. My name is Kyle.
What up? I'm Brian.
And we are 2/3 of the rock band Blue Turnip, and we just love to hang out and talk about awesome tunes in a really dumb and bad way.
That's right, man. And we were just talking before we got on, this is going to be our best podcast yet because
I'm officially an Apple boy just like you now.
Apple boys.
My wife, if listeners don't know, me and Brian's birthdays are like 5 days apart. And so we just had our birthdays last week or 2 weeks ago. And my wife surprised me with a new MacBook Pro. So
sick.
I know, it's amazing. It's changed my life in so many good ways.
Yeah, dude, we got the apple juice flowing.
The apple juice in our veins.
And we got a little extra mojo because we're representing the great city of New York.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, put on my Mets jersey, my Mets shirt today in protest of how dumb the Astros Red Sox series was.
Yeah, and how much we hate the Yankees.
Yeah. I said, I mean, this is not a sports podcast. We haven't talked about sports at all. But if the Yankees get Carlos Correa, I think I'll just officially root for a different team next year.
Oh, yeah. I've already decided. If we get him, I'm done, dude. He's like the worst of the worst. Yeah.
Oh, whatever. Boy. Yeah. See, you never know what you're going to get on our podcast. We'll throw in a little baseball. Brian and I are huge baseball fans.
Big time. And
we loved the Yankees growing up, and now we have a love-hate relationship with the Yankees, but is what it is. Is what it is.
Yeah. Go Braves. Go Braves.
Yeah. Part of Katie, my wife was saying this morning though. She was like, if the Braves win, do the Braves have a shot at beating the Astros? And I know.
I didn't think they had a shot at beating the Dodgers either.
That's true. That's true.
They got the magic mojo.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. Plus, if the Astros win, they'll be like, see, I told you. Yeah. It's like worst case scenario.
It really is. It's like
low key, I think I was pulling for the Red Sox to win.
Oh yeah.
Deep down inside, as much as that hurts.
Same. And I've seen some interesting reports on Twitter of how you should feel as a Yankees fan if you pulled for the Red Sox in that series. And I'm like, whatever, dude. I barely even hate the Red Sox anymore. I'm like, like there's nothing wrong with them. It's just like a likable bunch. Yeah. But, oh well. All right, anyways. back to the task at hand. Yeah. So if it's your first time tuning in with us, sorry. But what we're doing right now is in this, I guess, season of our podcast, we are talking about each of our top 5 albums, starting at the year 2000 and working our way all the way up to present day. We'll end with the 2021 episode whenever we get there. But today we're both super psyched because we were talking about one of each of ours most stacked years of music, 2012.
Yeah, I think overall it's my second best year so far. I remember 2003 was my all-time fave, but this one ranks right up there. Very excited.
Nice. Yeah, it's right up there for me too. I know I was writing out my honorable mentions list, and I was like, these albums on my honorable mentions probably would be in top 5 most other years, because like there's just so much good music. Yeah, it's
for
crazy.
Sure. Yeah, man.
Well, sweet. Before we get into the countdown, we always like to do a little segment, and we teased this at the very end of the last episode. Brian had a great idea of talking about covers, and we're going to talk a little bit about what place do covers have on studio albums, and what are some covers that we think are actually better than the original recordings of the songs. So I'll turn it over to you, Brian. What are your feelings about putting a cover on a studio album?
I'm not a huge fan of it, because I feel like when you buy an album, you expect it to be originals. Like they had all the time to produce something original. So I always lean towards not liking covers on albums. Of course, there's a few exceptions for like really, really good ones. But the main thing for me is like, if you do a cover, unless it's live, it's got to be different. Like you got to make it your own. And for the songs that I picked that I thought were better than the originals, it's like drastic changes. So I like a straight up cover live. Like it's always fun to see a cover live, like if you're not expecting it. But an album, I think it has to be different. And one example I always like to use is Weezer's Teal album. I don't know if you've heard that one. It's just all 80s songs covers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're literally note for note, like exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like Africa by Toto. I didn't even know it was Weezer when I heard it on the radio. I mean, I think that's awful. It's unnecessary. So for me, like I said, the main thing is that it has to be different. What are your thoughts?
I think for me, it's a volume thing. Like how much music am I getting? Because if you're going to put out like a 7-8 song album and 1 or 2 of the songs is covers, which has happened before, it's like, man, like what are you doing? Like 25% of this is just a cover. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of great music and you throw a cover on there, I'm like, sweet. Especially like you said, if it's a good addition, if it's something that they did something cool with. Or I'm also too, like if there's a couple of the ones on my list that we'll talk about later are pretty much like good songs that the recording of the time just like didn't really, it's not aged super well. And if you like do a cover that sounds pretty much like that, but it's just like modern and everything sounds better and it's more better produced and stuff like that, and I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I agree with you. Like I actually can be down for an album that's totally a cover album if that's like what you're doing, if that's the thing you're doing. But like you said, with Weezer's, it was kind of like, why do this if it's just gonna be almost like the Weezer guy singing karaoke over top of the
exactly.
over top of the recordings. But
yeah.
No,
I agree with you. And speaking, just like going off of that, I like cover bands too. Like there's some really good Beatles cover bands where it's kind of like seeing the Beatles. Like we saw one called Rain several years ago, and it was cool because they like dressed like them and copied their mannerisms and stuff. So I do like cover bands, but like I said again, like I think it works better live than on an album for the most part.
Yeah, true. And Beatles cover bands are interesting because I've seen a handful, and most of them are all really, really good. But like two that come to mind is, my wife and I, when we were on our honeymoon, we saw a show on the West End. It was a Beatles show, and they played Beatles songs, and they only spoke words that the Beatles spoke. Like all of their lines were direct lines from Beatles interviews or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then and that was an amazing show. It was awesome. But I've also seen a great show by a band called Abbey Road, that was kind of like a 50-50 Beatles cover group / jam band. And they would go on some like extended solos and like do some different things and turn the songs into medleys and stuff. And I really like that too.
That's cool.
So it kind of works in both ways of like, wow, this is exactly like the Beatles, or like, man, this is Beatles music, but they're like really putting their own spin on it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, those are some good points we made. That's why we have a professional podcast.
Yes, the apple juice is out in the
so
ether
much
now.
apple juice. Sugar free.
That
was a bad joke. Sorry.
Can't be sugar free. It's gotta be good tasting.
Yeah, we gotta get a little extra energy. Anyways, we're gonna talk about cover songs that we think are better than the originals, but I know we also have a few that we think are equal as well as to the originals. So we can just run through those real quick. How many of those do you have?
I've got
just
one.
Like one. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just do mine first, and I'll let you do yours. But the first one I have is "Respect" by Aretha Franklin. It was originally by Otis Redding, which I didn't know until recently because the Aretha Franklin version's like so well known. But if you listen to the Otis Redding one, it's equally as awesome. Really cool. Kind of a different, a little different feel, less soul, more grooving. But it's a really good song. The other one I got is "Shine" by Pillar, which is originally by Collective Soul. The Collective Soul one is classic. And Pillar kind of took it, it's very similar, but they kind of like upped the tempo and made it way heavier. So that's cool. It's kind of like a metal cover of it. Yeah. And the last one I got is by a super obscure band that I think not many people know about. They're called Lemon Sky, and they did I Want You, She's So Heavy by the Beatles. And to say a song is equally as good to a Beatles song is kind of a big deal. But it's like, because I Want You, She's So Heavy is such a heavy song for this. I guess it was in the 70s, late 60s when that came out.
Yeah.
But they basically took it and made it like what it could be today, kind of like you were talking about earlier, a little more modernized, so heavy, and it works so good as more of like your heavy rock song. So those are a few that I think were equal to the originals. Check them out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've actually never heard the Otis Redding Respect. I'll have to check that out for sure. That sounds cool.
Dude, I know nobody knows about it. It's great. Yeah. He got screwed.
Yeah, the other two that you mentioned are awesome as well. Those are really good covers.
Oh, thanks, dude.
I'll admit that I'm a tiny bit under researched here. I kind of went with stuff that was like the first things that came to my mind, but this is a cover that's been on my mind a bunch over the past month because it's brand new. It came out on the latest Neil Morse Band album. They did the Simon and Garfunkel song Bridge Over Troubled Water. And it's so different. They turned it into like a 9-minute progressive rock, like bombastic, like huge thing. And you know, the Simon and Garfunkel is so like serene, like, and the orchestra's back there and just like a slow build, and so super different, both really effective. It's a really cool cover if you get a chance to check it out.
Dude, I actually heard that one recently.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really good. Nice. And they used an acoustic guitar instead of the piano.
Yes.
Just gives it a nice new sound for sure.
Yeah, really cool.
Nice one. All right, you want to jump into the ones that we think are better?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll
throw up a little controversy.
I'll go first because I know what we want to have you end. So I think I got mine in chronological order here.
Oh, nice.
My first one's from the early 90s. Buddy Guy's version of Mustang Sally.
Yes.
Mustang Sally, great original recording. I think Wilson Pickett was there might have been somebody who did it before him, but I know Wilson Pickett's version is the really popular one. And his version is great. Wilson Pickett's an awesome singer, amazing performer. But this Buddy Guy version, so awesome. He's got that real nasty guitar solo that started off, and the big growly horns and saxophones, like and the choir and stuff. And Buddy Guy he's got a really good sense of humor, and he like really hams up the put your flat feet on the ground, like put your flat feet on. It's like, but yeah, I just love that one. It's an awesome recording.
It's better. I agree. Yeah. Way to kick it off, bro. Apple juice.
Apple juice.
The first one I got is All Along the Watchtower by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, originally by Bob Dylan. Mostly because I really don't like Bob Dylan at all.
Yeah, same.
I think that's the main reason.
Cancel us.
But Jimmy's taken over. He made it his own. Like, actually, I looked this up, and Bob Dylan even has a quote saying that he thought the Jimi Hendrix version was better.
Nice.
So we've got Bob Dylan's approval. So it's an automatic win. But the main thing for me is the guitar solos that Jimi Hendrix has versus the harmonica solos that Bob Dylan has. Like, it doesn't even compare. It's just better. And U2 covers the Jimi Hendrix Experience version, and that one's also really good too.
Oh, nice. Cover to cover.
Yeah. So there we go. It's obvious.
Nice. One super quick story about that, because it's really funny. So my wife got super into the show Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you've ever seen that one or heard of that.
I haven't seen it. I know what it is. Yeah.
But I wasn't watching it with her, but there was one day when she was watching it and I was walking around the house, and a big plot line of that show is that basically people are almost like haunted by that song All Along the Watchtower. and like I walked by the TV and I like heard the like Jimi Hendrix, and I was like, why is All Along the Watchtower playing? She was like, what are you talking about? I was like, in the background is All Along the Watchtower. And she was like, oh, that is what that is. And there was like an episode before they revealed like what was going on, and I like totally spoiled it. And I was like, oh, whoops. My
That's
bad.
awesome.
But yeah, anyways, sorry.
No, you're good.
Cool. Next I've got the Audio Adrenaline cover of Free Ride by the Edgar Winter Group.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much like you were saying about Weezer. It's almost a note for note, exactly the same cover, but it just sounds like 10 times better. They jacked up the guitars a little bit more distorted, very clearer, fuller, warmer tone. The organ sounds amazing. And I personally like Mark Stewart's gravelly vocals more than the smoother vocals on the original recording. And I just think they do such a great job with that breakdown, really kind of nasty it up. And but yeah, Free Ride, Audio Adrenaline on the Bloom album.
Yeah, it's an awesome cover. And I'm going to contradict myself right now too, the same way. This song sounds note for note pretty much the same as the original. I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Another one I didn't know was a cover until recently. It's originally by the Arrows. I don't know who they are. So I think they're like some one-hit wonder band, but pretty much like the vocals. I like Joan Jett's vocals. She's got like a powerhouse rock voice. It just works. It just works better for that song. So I do believe it's better, even though it's basically the same.
Nice.
Like I said, there's exceptions. That's one of them.
The exception that proves the rule, whatever that means. I didn't know that was a cover either. I'm gonna have to listen to that original version also.
Yeah. Let me know what you think.
Sweet. Next, this is from an album that was actually an honorable mention from the year 2000 for me. From the Joan Osborne Righteous Love album. Her cover of Love Is Alive by Gary Wright. Kind of similar to Free Ride. It's a very similar cover in terms of music, but it's just she really rocked the heck out of it. And the guitars are a lot more distorted and out front, and she's got a gravelly vocal. Yeah, kind of similar to the first couple that I mentioned, I guess. So sorry about that, but yeah, it's a really cool recording of that song.
Awesome. All right, next one I have is Hallelujah by Rufus Wainwright, which was originally by Leonard Cohen, and it's been covered like 100 times, and I like every version I've heard better than the original. The original is just so slow and boring and just drags, and I like how Rufus kind of upped the tempo a little bit. It just works better for whatever reason. I just like it better.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think it's one of those songs where, like, honestly, it's not my favorite song, no matter who does it. But
fair enough.
But the Rufus Wainwright is, I'd say, at least 20 times better than the original Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, it's that much better.
Yeah,
the original is brutal.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're gonna, like, if a certain kind of person listens to this episode, they're gonna be very upset with us. We're trashing Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen in the same podcast.
Dude, but do you know anybody that's actually a Bob Dylan fan? I was talking about this the other day. Like, I don't know a single person who's like, I love Bob Dylan.
That's a really good question. I had a friend who was super into James Taylor, and I know he also liked Bob Dylan, but I don't know if.
Yeah.
But actually, Neil Morse, who I mentioned earlier, I'm about to mention right now, he's a Bob Dylan fan, and he did an album. He did an album of songs that were like in the Bob Dylan style, and it sucks. It's so bad. Even he admits, he's like, yeah, it was a bad idea. I shouldn't have done it.
Did he sing like it?
I mean, not to that extreme, but yeah. But yeah.
You remember Rage Against the Machine did Maggie's Farm by Bob Dylan?
I haven't heard that one.
Not better, obviously. Like Maggie's Farm. Anyways,
dude, you should be a singer in a Rage Against the Machine cover band. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We should do lounge versions of Rage Against the Machine songs and just have like super chill vocals like that, like Maggie's Farm.
Yeah. Oh no, but
Bulls
speaking
on
of just
parade.
yeah, they're all the same. Killing in the name of
Just like smooth, like brush, brush drums, like jazz. Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
we should do that. I'd make money.
Have you heard Brass Against the Machine?
No.
It's a Rage Against the Machine cover band who plays brass instruments.
Oh, all right.
It's kind of cool. I mean, it's not the greatest, but anyways, another
Yeah.
cover to look for.
Yeah. Let's see. I mentioned Neil Morse already, but the core three of the original Neil Morse recording group, Neil Morse, Randy George, and Mike Portnoy, whenever they booked studio time for the first like 5-6 albums that Neil Morse recorded solo, whatever time they had left over at the end, they would just pick a few covers and record them and sort of put them in the vault, and then they would release them as full cover albums whenever they had enough to do that. And I think this one's on the first. They just called him Morse Portnoy George. I think this was on the first one that they did. Pleasant Valley Sunday by the Monkees. It is. I love Pleasant Valley Sunday. It's a Carole King song that the Monkees got to record, and Carole King's such a great songwriter. The key change from the verse to the chorus is super cool. But it's just like the Monkees aren't known for being like the most talented, like amazing recording group of all time. And
Right.
like when you get like world-class musicians in there doing a song, it's like, whoa, that's sweet. And they do a big jam at the end. And yeah, it's an awesome recording.
Yeah, I'm curious to check that one out because I like the Monkey song a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll let you know what I think about it.
Sweet.
Tell you if you're wrong. Okay, we've talked about this one in the past. Mad World by Gary Jules.
Oh yeah.
Originally by Tears for Fears. I said I like when covers are transformed into their own songs, and this is just like an absolute complete transformation of the song. And I think the thing that really separates it and makes it better, the lyrics of the song are phenomenal. And the Gary Jules version of the song captures the mood so much better. The Tears for Fears one's like real upbeat, like kind of poppy. And this is kind of like slow piano, more depressing, honestly, but it works so much better. And I think that's why it stands out for me.
Nice. You can actually find, I'm not 100% sure of the timeline, but Tears for Fears did do a version that is like the Gary Jules version. I think inspired by like, oh, what he did is really, really cool. And yeah, they did a version that had like a kids choir and it was slowed down and
nice.
Yeah. So I think they realized as well, like, oh, that's a real like artistic thing he did with this.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome.
I could be totally wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it happened.
I believe you.
And the last one, this is an album that's got, I think, 5 covers on it, but they're all really good. From the album Eat a Pickle by O'Toole that I talked about in 2007 was number 2 on my list that year. Their cover of Ann Peebles's I Can't Stand the Rain. Super different, awesome. They did this extended sort of instrumental bridge. It's got these kind of like wacky chord changes and super overdriven guitar solo and these real echoey vocals. And Tommy Farisi does the lead vocal. He's got just like the best gravelly blues voice. Most of these covers are that I really like are basically like took songs that had like smooth vocals and just threw gravelly voices in there and we're like, yeah, now it's a gravelly song. But it's another good one, another one on my list there.
Sweet. And I think this brings us to the last one. Am I right?
Yeah.
We timed that out. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And the reason we saved this one for last is because on my number 5 album from the year 2012, and the song is Shivers by Divine Fits, originally by the band The Boys Next Door. Just real quick, another capturing of the mood. I thought they did better. The Boys Next Door one's kind of boring. And this just kind of took it up to the level where it could have been.
Mm.
So yeah. But anyways, I'll talk about the album now. My number 5 album from 2012.
All
A
right.
Thing Called Divine Fits by Divine Fits. They're somewhat of a super group. It's two guys mostly. It's Britt Daniel of Spoon, the lead singer and guitarist, and Dan Beckner. I think that's how you say his name, spelled really weird. Boeckner. We'll go with
sounds right.
Beckner. He's of a band called Wolf Parade. But Divine Fits is one of those bands where like opposites attract, because Britt Daniel has like a super rough, raspy voice, plays nasty guitar stuff. And this dude, Dan Beckner, has a real smooth, real clean voice. And he plays your more smooth, like synthy kind of stuff. So yeah, I think they work really well together in a weird sense that you wouldn't think they would. But it's got a super heavy Spoon influence. Like the first song that I heard on the radio was Would That Not Be Nice? It was a huge single for him. And I was like, oh, cool, a new Spoon song. And they're like, that was Divine Fits. I'm like, no way. I'm like, that was Spoon. And then I looked them up. I was like, oh, well, it kind of was Spoon. But it's got that heavy Spoon influence. But like I said, with Dan Beckner's influence, it's got enough to make it something different. And they basically trade. It's basically 50-50 who wrote songs on the album. And you can tell who wrote which song. Well, obviously by who's singing it, but very different sound styles too. But yeah, they work really well together. And their cover of Shivers is just like phenomenal. Britt Daniel's vocal on that one really stands out for me. Because he like kind of screams when it gets more intense at the end, and it's just so dirty in a good way.
Nice.
But yeah, dude, it's a great album. I've always liked it. I got to see them live. They're very short-lived. They did one album. And I got to see them at Bonnaroo. It was the year after this came out, so that was kind of cool.
I didn't know they were only a one album group.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check myself. I think they had like an EP or something. But that was pretty much it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they just had one album.
Okay.
Yeah, one and done.
There you go.
Yep.
Nice, good times. All right, I'll roll it over to my number 5 from 2012. I almost feel bad that this is my number 5, Brian, because I know that this was one that gives you PTSD from your WASU radio days.
Oh no.
We've got Lunatic by Congos. I know you had to play Come With Me Now like 3 times a day for a couple of years.
Yeah. That's a good song though.
Yeah, but
once you don't hear it for 10 years, it's great.
But yeah, this is a group of brothers from, I believe, South Africa that just put together a really cool album. It's one of those albums that like I think they got the chance to record it a couple times, and so like this is the second time they recorded it, so everything's like really nice and polished and clean, and these are songs they've been playing for years, so like it feels really like full and well done, and they just have some unique things to their sound that kind of helps them stand out from other rock music that was on the radio at the time. They've got a definite like hip hop influence. You can hear they got like booming bass, those big booming bass things that like if you turn it up in your car, it makes the whole thing rumble. And they also have the addition of the accordion, which is really, really cool. Yeah. The accordion's in a lot of their songs. Their vocalist almost gives me like a little bit of an Avenged Sevenfold vibe sometimes, just from like the like octaves and the
I can hear that.
There's and I think the surprising thing about this album, and I was almost a little surprised that it made my top 5, but I ended up listening to it 3 times all the way through when I was trying to decide if this is gonna be my number 5 or not. And it's got really nice ballads, and they kind of get forgotten because they get remembered for that sort of like upbeat, energetic. But there's like 3 or 4 really nice slow songs on here that are just like, they got really catchy melodies and kind of heartfelt lyrics. And but I mean, I say that, and I think on the playlist I put 3 upbeat songs because those ones are really fun. But yeah, cool album.
Yeah, are they still around?
I think so. I think they I have their second album as well, which is called Egomaniac, which I think was 3 or 4 years after this one, and they might have one more that I haven't heard yet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we discovered them at the same time, but I actually heard that song for the first time on a local radio station. And I remember I don't know if you were there or not. It was when we were like staining a deck or something, like for our summer job. And we heard the song and we loved it. And then we requested it the next day. And it turns out it was like heavy in their rotation. So we heard it every day. So yeah, we screwed that one up.
Oh yes, you were double duty. You were hearing it at work and when you were at the radio station. Oh yeah, so you really got hit hard with that one.
Yeah, man. And somebody at when I was at WASU, somebody interviewed Congos, and they did promos for the station while we had them in or on the phone or whatever. And it was like the worst promo of all time. They all said their name and that they were with the band Congos. Like, hey, I'm Jesse. This is Congos. Hey, I'm Will. This is Congos. Hey, I'm Bryant. This is Congos. And we're Congos. It was like that bad. And I guess somebody said something because they ended up editing all the Congos out. But it was pretty funny. Yeah, good times.
That's hilarious.
All right. I'll hop into my number 4. And it is Here by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. I'm just now realizing that my first 3 bands on this list I discovered from Bonnaroo 2013.
Oh, right.
Because you click through all the bands on the list and find the ones that you like. That's how I found them. Nice. I heard their song "Man on Fire" and I loved it. But I always say a hippie band is a happy band.
That's funny.
It's a 12-person group, probably real stinky. Just a bunch of hippies in a van, just like bringing joy to the world. I always just so happy when I listen to them. I'd categorize it maybe like a modern kind of folk sound. You do hear a lot of bluegrass, like old time influence, but there's also kind of like islandy stuff. Lots of instruments, lots of group vocals, obviously. Super distinct sound though. And I love, they have 2 lead singers. I don't know their last names, but it's Alex and Jade, and they work together really, really good. You could feel the love in the air. Well, before she became a heroin addict, but that's a story for another day.
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah, but it's just feel good stuff. And me and my wife love listening to them, just like in the car or wherever. They're just happy to listen to. I mentioned "Man on Fire." It's one of my favorites. "That's What's Up," such a happy song. "Mela" is one of my favorites. That's kind of your islandy, almost like Jimmy Buffett sounding kind of song. So yeah, super unique band. This was their second album, and I think it was by far the best one they did. Their other ones are a little more pick and choose for me, but I always listen to this one all the way through. It's really short too. I think it's like 8 or 9 songs. So it's nice. Breezy. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But I love it. It's a good one.
I don't know them well enough to know if this song is on this album. I'd probably bet that it is, but that Alabama, Arkansas.
Home.
Yeah, Home.
Yeah, that's on their first one.
That's on the first one. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. And I played that at a wedding a couple years ago. 2019, in the before times, the pre-pandemic life.
Like Congos, that's another song I heard too many times. Like it was just everywhere for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not their fault.
Yeah, I guess. All right, well, so I'm going to break format a little bit here. So my number 4 is the same as your number 1. So I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but what I am going to do real quick before we slide on is I'm going to just toss in my honorable mentions for 2012 here.
Brilliant.
And then we'll slide on. Let you hit your number 3.
Okay. Sounds good.
So honorable mentions, and this is one, Brian, that you actually turned me on to, Alan Stone's first album.
Yes,
he may have been another guy that you found at Bonnaroo.
Yeah, he was. This was the year. That was a great year.
It really was. Yeah. But I don't know, you got anything you want to say about that one? That's a great, nice album.
Yeah. What's the name of the first song? Where he's like, smoke weed.
Yeah.
It's all right. Anyways.
If I sleep,
yeah.
Can't get no
it.
sleep.
Yeah,
can't get no sleep. Yeah.
Because that's the one song that Bonnaroo had on their website. And it was just like awesome.
Yeah.
But he's a phenomenal vocalist. He sounds so much like Stevie Wonder. Yeah. He really does.
I hadn't thought about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's great. I love that album.
Nice. Excellent. This is one I was like, this is an album that I was for sure was going to make my countdown at some point, but it just landed on a super stacked year, so it didn't end up being on here. But The Sound of the Life of the Mind by Ben Folds 5.
Oh
yeah, it's a really good album. It's probably my second favorite Ben Folds album. Yeah, there's 6 songs that I just love and could listen to over and over again on there. Those title tracks, Sound of the Life of the Mind, On Being Frank, Thank You for Breaking My Heart. Yeah, there's some really, really great songs on there. Yeah.
That's the one with Erase Me?
Yes.
You say that?
The opening track.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I did not say that. No, I didn't say that song. Thank you.
No problem.
In 2011, the Michael Bublé Christmas album was an honorable mention. In 2012, I have Josh Wilson's Christmas album as an honorable mention. Noel, Josh Wilson's Christmas album. It's awesome. This is probably, you guys know I'm a huge Trans-Siberian Orchestra fan, but if I'm going to go to a Christmas album that's not them, it's this one. This is a really, really great Christmas album. Yeah, very diverse, really cool stuff. And nice. He did, speaking of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, he does a cover of Carol of the Bells, which is also instrumental, which is, I feel like, very brave to do because both Mannheim Steamroller and Trans-Siberian Orchestra have such famous instrumental recordings of that. And he did a recording of it that's just so different and so cool. And it works in O Come Come Emmanuel a little bit as well, which is really cool. Nice. But yeah, cool album there.
Awesome.
Uncaged by the Zac Brown Band. This is a really cool album. This is probably the album that he really was kind of like, I don't know how much of a country band we are anymore. Really got into some different stuff. There's that song they did with Trombone Shorty. They get into some interesting time signatures on a couple of the songs, and there's some grooves, but there's some country stuff as well. But this was the one I think where they were just like, we're just gonna do whatever we want to do. Came out really good. Came out nice.
Their band is so talented.
Oh man,
that's unreal. Why we talked about it maybe last week, but they stand out in the country music world so much just because they have real talent.
For sure. Yeah,
that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think I especially like groups. I'm very drawn to groups that are kind of genre defying as well. And I always appreciate that aspect of his songwriting, that he's like, hey, I wrote a song and it's Jimmy Buffett. Hey, I wrote a song and it's prog rock. Hey, I wrote a song and I want to have Chris Cornell sing on it. Hey, it's just like, it's like he just kind of does whatever he wants to do. So yeah,
that's cool.
And speaking of prog rock, I'm going to talk about a lot of prog rock today, but Epic Cloud by Devin Townsend. This is his album with his most famous single on it, which I am blanking on the name of right now. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
No, it's gone. It's out of my brain. Yeah, but anyways, I promise you, Devin Townsend's most popular song is on this album. He sings it very, very well. I think especially like the first 3 songs in a row on this album, just like boom, 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 just like it sets the tone for a really cool recording. And then finally, this is one that I found when I was just poking around and listening for albums in 2012, Charmer by Amy Mann. I've heard some Amy Mann stuff before and it's never been my favorite, but Kingdom is the name of that Devin Townsend song. Sorry.
There you go.
It is.
It is
popular. Charmer by Amy Mann. This is an album that sounds a little bit different compared to her, the majority of the body of her work. A little bit more electric instrument driven, but still very chill, like kind of that like adult alt rock vibe. And she's just got a deep alto voice, and this album just is like really good singer-songwriter songs with really nice vibe. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Sweet.
All right, honorable mention break has ended. We'll go back to the real top 5 of 2012. I'll turn it over to you, Brian. What's your
Right.
number 3?
Yeah, dude, this new format's really throwing me off. No, just kidding. We got all kinds of country, man, because I got my first country artist of all the years so far. His name is John Fulbright. He's from Oklahoma, I think, and his debut album is called From the Ground Up, and it is so good. I think John Fulbright, along with Zach Brown, is like proof that country music can be good. And I feel like some of these songs could be massive hits, but he's just like such an underdog. I can't figure it out why he doesn't get any radio play. But the album definitely has a huge blues influence on it. There's like sweet guitar solos. John Fulbright is one of the best harmonica players I've ever heard.
Wow.
The dude freaking shreds on harmonica. Like, you know, the Jay Giles band guy? I put him like second to him.
Nice.
Like, he's unreal. So that's a really cool aspect to them. Dude just like freaking rips on harmonica. And another interesting thing is like you can tell that he was brought up in a church because a lot of their lyrics, it's controversial. Like they're not necessarily positive lyrics a lot of the time, but there's a lot of like hymnal gospel sounding songs on here, like slow piano ballad kind of stuff. And it's a really unique album because of that, because he's got these beautiful piano ballads, but he can also get these like nasty, bluesy, hard rock and country tunes. So it's just a super eclectic album. And this is another guy I discovered because of Bonnaroo. And we got to see him in the front row. And the amount of talent this guy has is just unreal. I think he was 22 years old when this album came out, when we saw him. And his guitarist is like 60 years old. So that was kind of funny. But I remember it was one of the loudest shows I've ever been to because we were right below the speaker stack. And it was like I was turned, so it was all going to my right ear. And after that show, I couldn't hear out of my right ear.
I've had that experience before. I know exactly what you're talking. It takes like weeks for it to fully come back.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Yeah. So of all people, John Fulbright
took
my hearing.
That's awesome,
dude. This year is such a good year for me. This is like top 20 albums of all time territory for me.
Wow.
Like I like it that much. And I had such high expectations for him, and his second album just didn't work for me.
Really?
I was so disappointed. So I always go back to this one. And then he kind of just fell off the face of the earth.
Wow.
Like he never made it. It's kind of a bummer because the dude's like ridiculously talented.
Man.
But yeah, I'll talk about some of my favorite songs too. Jericho is one of my favorites. It's got a really good female vocal on it. I'm not sure who it is. Fat Man is awesome. It's a piano song, and it's got a really cool like cello and violin solo. And All the Time in the World, if you want to hear some of that harmonica work, that's the one to do it on.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But
I think
such a good album.
Fat Man, I know I've heard that you've sent me that one before. A live recording. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But I need to check out the other ones. I saw Jericho was on the playlist as well. Yeah. And speaking of the playlist, if this is your first time listening to us, we have in the description to the video a link to a Spotify playlist where Brian and I throw in a few selections from each of our top 5. If there's stuff that you've heard and want to revisit, or maybe there's some stuff that you haven't heard before that you want to take a listen to. All but one album is included in there. There's one album on my list that the artist is not on Spotify, but we also have a YouTube playlist, which you can find in the info card in the corner of this video. And that has that one missing artist on there as well. So we got YouTube and Spotify for try to be friendly to everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
And just to check in, Brian, because I just want to make sure, because I got your list here. That was your number 3 album?
Oh yeah, swapped them.
Okay, cool. Just
sorry.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure you got to talk about all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually tell you because I make a lot of switches last minute, and I realized like it was painfully obvious that I had those flip flops. So
gotcha.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. All right, now okay, we're getting into progressive rock. This is a good territory. So
Here we go.
all of my top three are prog rock albums this year. I'm very, very excited about it. Number three, this album is called The Death Defying Unicorn by by the band Motorpsycho, as well as violinist and composer Stale Storken. I think that's how you say his name. Very Eastern European name.
Very cool.
Holy moly. This is an album that is not for everyone. I'll say that right up front. But I have never ever heard anything like this. In my opinion, it is like a masterpiece, like a masterwork of art that just I haven't heard before. It's a 2-disc album, and pretty much the whole first disc flows and the whole second disc flows. So you kind of, it's meant to be listened to. Motorpsycho is a psychedelic alternative rock / prog rock group that's been around since the 90s. And so you get a big time psychedelic influence on this album. There's a lot of riffs, very heavy affected vocals. But then, and this is where it's like so elevated, the violinist Stale Storken did orchestral arrangements for all of the music. And it's like, some of it's just serene, but most of it is like almost reminds me of like Stravinsky-esque, like modern classical, these textures. And oh my gosh, when you mush together the like psychedelic aspects with the classical aspects, and there's also a jazz woodwind and brass group. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called the something jazz orchestra. I should have looked that up beforehand, but they play on several of the songs. And so you get this brass piece in there as well. Gosh, it blows my mind when I listen to it. I've never heard anything like it. Like I said, it's not for everybody. It's very long form. It's not gonna be the kind of thing where you're gonna leave it humming choruses that you heard. But in terms of just like ambition and like an idea that just came together so well because they had all the right people working on it. This is it. It's like a masterpiece in my opinion.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of clicked with me what we talked about last week too, where we tend to like stuff that's not necessarily popular sounding. And I think for prog rock, you could probably agree with me, they have a very dedicated kind of fan base. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're totally right. Especially people that are fans of bands, they get really, really attached and will support those groups with like in additional creative ways. But Motorpsycho is somehow a band that's sort of flown under the radar. They've been around for a really, really long time, so they must have, be making some money off of it. But even this album is pretty underground, even for progressive rock. I can't remember how I came across this one, but I remember that I found it when I was teaching, the last year that I was teaching, because I just hated my job. And so every day after school to like try and like decompress, I had these really nice speakers in my room, and I would just get like really weird music and just like turn it way up and just like have like this while I was grading papers or whatever. And this was an album that I found that year and would just listen to it over and over again and annoy everybody on the hallway with how weird and loud it was. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Never heard that one. Along with a lot of other people, it sounds like. So, yeah. Looking forward to that playlist. It'll be good.
Yeah, I put just the first 3 tracks on there. They all just flow one right into the next, so that gives you a taste of. And I think the first 3 tracks are somewhere in the ballpark of 25-ish minutes. So it's a lot of music.
Yeah, that's prog for you though. Yeah. All right. Going to number 2 here. It is Holy Weather by Civil Twilight. And 2012 is such a good year. This is one of my all-time favorite albums. We talked about their debut album before and how it was like had so much potential. Basically, they took everything they did right on their first album and made it work so much better on this one. Most importantly, it's more like compact because that first album kind of dragged. I think this one works way better as an album. It's got that great flow to it. And their singer Stephen McKellar, such a smooth vocalist. I've got to see him live a couple of times, and he sings these beautiful falsettos with so much ease that like it's kind of annoying. He's just got one of those angelic voices that he just can't go wrong. So his vocal has always been a big selling point for me. But the Radiohead influence in Civil Twilight is massive. And Holy Weather like almost sounds like a Radiohead album. It's just like maybe not quite as weird and a little easier to sing along to. So it's got that weird, almost like progressive electronic kind of stuff to it that I really, really like. But it's definitely easier to approach, just like as a casual listener. The only thing about this album, like I love listening to it all the way through, but the first 6 songs I think are the best ones. So it falls off a little bit at the end, and that's probably why it's not like a top 10 album for me. But I know I've said top 20 a couple times today. I'd probably put it in my top 20. Like it's great. I listen to it all the time. It held up really well.
Yeah, and this was an album that I considered. I didn't end up putting it on my honorable mentions list. I can't really remember why, but I didn't include that one. But it was on. I agree with you. I think it's better overall. It's better than the first album. Yeah, really cool stuff. There's a song. Oh man, I'm so bad with song titles today. Fire. Does it have the word
Fire Escape?
Fire Escape. That's a really cool song. Yeah. I mean, but there's so many cool songs. That was just one that stood out to me when I was thinking about it just now. But yeah, that's a cool album.
The first one, River, is one of my favorites. Well, like I said, the first 6, they're the best. So
it's funny. The past couple weeks we've talked about, or the past 3-ish episodes, you know, Coldplay and Radiohead come up a lot. And it's funny you mentioned like Civil Twilight, it has a big Radiohead influence, and I don't know if I would have thought about it that way, but now that you've mentioned it, it's like, oh yeah, obviously. But I personally like Civil Twilight a lot better than I like Radiohead. And then a couple weeks ago, I was talking about an album that was big time Coldplay influence, but I like that better than Cold. I was like, it's funny, like what, like you hear those sounds in there or get those influences in there, and some things click with you and some things don't. It's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on in our brains that make that happen. But
I think Civil Twilight takes that influence because it's pretty obvious Radiohead influence, but they make it their own. I think that's what it is. It's not like a band trying to copy another band.
Sure.
So I think that's a big reason for sure.
Nice. Cool. All right. My number 2. Gosh, it's such a great year. I'm so excited to get to talk about this stuff.
Good year.
The debut, we got a lot of debut albums in here as well. The debut album by Flying Colors, just called Flying Colors. Similar to Divine Fits that you were talking about, this is a debut album from a supergroup. This supergroup, we've got Casey McPherson, who's from Alpha Rev. He's the singer guitarist. We've got Neil Morse, who everybody knows that I love from his solo stuff, Spock's Beard. Dave LaRue, who's bass player, who has played with Mike Portnoy some, he's played with Joe Satriani, some other Steve Morse. Steve Morse is in here, and Mike Portnoy is on the drums. And basically, this was a band that was created by a producer. Peter Collins, was like, what if we made this super group like of progressive rock instrumentalists and put a pop rock singer as the front man, and tried to sort of like market to both genres, like that we could maybe get some radio play on regular rock radio, and we get the prog rock people in there for that. And usually when producers have ideas like that, it comes out really bad and it kind of sucks. But this one was like lightning in a bottle, man. What a great album they ended up pumping out. And I think they have 3 albums, and this will be a little bit of a giveaway for a future episode, but the strength of, in my opinion, their first and third album is that if they were on the like normal rock, progressive rock spectrum, they tilt towards the normal rock side of that spectrum, like where there's still progressive elements in there, but definitely more on the normal side.
Yeah, I got you.
And I just think it's a sound that's very difficult to find in modern music, that sort of like power pop sound that really had its day in the late 60s, early 70s. But with these unbelievably world-class talented musicians and all the modern production. Now this is an album that you're going to leave humming the choruses, because the songs are so well crafted. They're so well put together. Yeah, just awesome music. Yeah, unfortunately, I have not had the chance to see them live. When they tour, it's usually pretty limited runs because it's a super group and they're all busy doing their other stuff. But yeah, super fantastic record.
Nice, man. Another one I need to listen to. We've talked about this before. I'm not as big of a progressive rock fan as you are, but that's one thing that I really like about doing this is it introduces me and you to a lot of new stuff, as well as hopefully listeners too.
Yeah,
because between us we listen to like an absurdly eclectic amount of things.
Yes. I'll suggest to you, I think, and every time I hear this song, I think about you, because I think of how much I think you would like the drums and just kind of the whole vibe of the song. It's not on the playlist, but Forever in a Daze. It's track 5. I think if you wanted to check one out to be like, is this band for me? That would be a good song for you to listen to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, is Mike Portnoy in every prog rock supergroup?
Mike Portnoy plays with everybody. I think
It's not even fair.
He's got to put out somewhere between 5 and 10 albums a year. It's That's like crazy, it's dude. Absolutely unbelievable. And like, because you talked about him, was it last episode when he drummed with
Avenged Sevenfold? Yeah.
And we've talked. He's been in almost every episode of our podcast at one point or another.
Yeah,
I think.
I know. But he needs to give other people a chance. What a jerk! That's hilarious. Speaking of drums, I just want to drop this in there. I just got a new snare drum called the Big Fat Steel Snare Drum, and it is literally like the fattest thing ever. It's like twice as deep as like a normal snare, and I just wanted to point that out. Like, it's so freaking loud. I love it.
It's beautiful.
So now I can play metal.
Yes.
Anyways, number 1 time, which is your number
4. Yes.
It's The Second Law by Muse. We could talk about it together. It'll be fun. I'll let you start this one off, like, because I'm probably like a bigger overall Muse fan than you. So I'm curious to see what you got to say about this one.
I think this is going to sound like hyperbole, but it's not. I think this is one of the most important albums of the past decade. In terms of a band that really went out on a limb and did something that was kind of risky, and paid off in such an unbelievable way, making them like internationally stadium tour famous. For basically bucking the traditions of the normal music industry. Would you agree with that? I mean, is that something that
dude, I 100% agree.
Yeah. And I think one of the greatest strengths of this album is that it has something for everybody in a really cool way. Like, there's, like, for me as a prog rock guy, there's really cool prog rock elements in there. There are a couple really beautiful ballads that just have these haunting like stay in your brain melodies. There's the big pop hits, there's the electronic elements, there's choirs, there's songs in 5/4 time that, you know, it's like, it's just like there's something for everybody in a really good way on this album that's really hard to find. I think I mean, I know that it probably sounds silly that it was number 4 on my list, and I'm talking about it like it's better than, or I like it better than the others, but just in terms of importance and what it did for them, and I think what it could have done for rock music. Unfortunately, it didn't really have many ripple effects in the main industry, but just holy smokes, what a well-deserved success this was for Muse.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I think it's the best Muse album of the modern era and probably the best Muse album ever. It's always a toss up between this one and Absolution for me. I always split Muse in half, but it's like amazingly good. And the thing that stands out for me the most on this one, and you talked about it a little bit, is the production. It's the best production on any album I've ever heard. It's easily my favorite produced album. The sound is just freaking massive. And the impressive thing to me about this album is there's so much going on, but every instrument, every vocal comes through like crystal clear quality. Like it's truly amazing to me how crystal clear this album sounds with having such a big sound and not getting muddy. So like I have just like a mad respect for the production on this one. And I know Matt Bellamy has a lot to do with that. And he definitely took the reins on this one in that aspect. And like you said, he does string arrangements, he does choral arrangements, horn arrangements. It's brilliant stuff. And you talked about all the different styles. You got rock, you got pop, you got dubstep, you got funk. Dude, it's like it's all over the place and it's awesome. And my like going back to the production, I think my favorite Muse song ever, like it's hard to find your favorite song by a band. Somebody's like, what's your favorite Muse song? I think I have one. And it's Survival. Oh my gosh, dude. Like that's like I was saying, there's so much going on in that song and it all comes through so clear.
That was
and
a big song.
Massive.
I remember they put out that single and it was like the song of the Olympics.
Yeah, it's the Olympic theme song.
Yeah.
And there's a live performance of them playing it at the Olympic like closing ceremony. It's insane.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Dude, and I had the great honor of seeing them on this tour. And it was like it exceeded my expectations. They're such a good live band. And like to see them on a tour that like is one of my favorite albums of all time was pretty freaking cool. Like I'll never forget it. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
And I'm looking at the songs the playlist. Like I like every song on the album, but if you want to run through those just like real quick, I thought it was interesting, just like the ones that we picked out.
Yeah, let me pull that up down here real quick. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Apple Boy's still learning how to use this computer here.
I've got them pulled up if you know.
Yeah, I got it here. Yeah, let's see. So we got the first 3 songs in a row: Supremacy, Madness, Panic Station. And I mean that's even just a testament to like how much is on this record. Like Supremacy, you got kind of like the full-blown like nasty riff, kind of prog influence thing going on there. And then you have Madness, like the straight up radio hit, just like super cool song. And like, I just love like one of the things I'm so opposed to in radio pop music is it just nothing ever happens. It's like when the song starts, that's just what you hear for however long the song goes. And Madness does such a subtle job of layering in different elements as the song goes on, to the point where even when you get to that very last chorus, the chord structure changes a little bit, and it's the same melody, and it I don't know, it's just really nice. They did a really, really nice job.
And I love how it breaks open too with that. It goes from the electronic drums to the drum fill. I think Madness is borderline perfect song. And we kind of like along the same lines as Starlight. It's very much a pop radio song, but like you said, it's got so much stuff that carries it from verse to verse, chorus to chorus, that keeps you interested the whole way through.
Yeah,
great song.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then Panic Station, you mentioned kind of the, I don't know, borderline like funk disco-ish vibe. Crazy fun, amazing F-bomb. And then Survival, another like monster prog rock track. Explorers and Save Me we have on there as well, 2 of the more like beautiful kind of serene tracks going on there. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good from top to bottom.
I was glad you picked Explorers because I was right there with that one. It's got such a big Beatles influence with the vocals. I love it. And this album too is the only album where their bassist Chris Wolstenholme wrote 2 songs. And Save Me was one of those, and it's awesome. And like the lyrics are super powerful because he went through a real bad alcohol addiction. So those songs kind of hit home on those on that subject matter.
Nice.
But yeah, Save Me is such a beautiful song. I always love that one. Cool.
Sweet. Awesome. All right, and then one more album, the top of my list, number 1, Momentum by Neil Morse. Neil Morse again. Come on.
Boo.
My gosh, this was the first Neil Morse album that I got to buy when it came out. Nice. I became a really big fan in like 2011, and this was the first album that was like, hey, it's coming, it's going to be awesome. And gosh, it did not disappoint. It's I was actually just reading an article the other day, I happened to cross it on accident, that said like this was almost an album that kind of like rejuvenated the Neil Morse oeuvre and like launched him into some really cool new stuff that came in the next few years, Flying Colors as well. But it's probably, in my opinion, his most accessible solo album in terms of if you're not a prog rock fan, you could just press play and you would enjoy it for exactly what it is and not feel like you were out of your element or that it was really weird. The first song, the title track, Momentum, super fun, upbeat. Paul Gilbert plays an awesome guitar solo on it. Then the second track is super proggy, Thoughts Part 5, which is actually, he wrote, I still don't really know what happened to Thoughts Part 3 and Part 4. So when he was with Spock's Beard, there's a song called Thoughts on the second album, which is fantastic. And there's a song called Thoughts Part 2 on their 5th album. And then here in his solo record, like 12 years later, we have Thoughts Part 5. So Thoughts Part 3 and 4 are somewhere floating around. But this is really cool, and it has like a little some elements from those old Thoughts songs, which he works in there, which is really cool. And then Smoke and Mirrors, kind of the ballad of the album, very nice. And then you get 2 really fun, just like rock songs, which he very rarely does. Weathering Sky, track 4, is one of my favorite Neil Morse songs. It's just like, it's a song that you have to listen to so loud, and I'll always feel good about it because I remember a time when I was driving around in my old 97 RAV4 and I had all my windows down and I was listening to this song so loud, and a dude pulled up next to me in a Jeep Wrangler and like looked over at me and was like was like jamming along, and I was like, yes, like this song's so cool.
That's awesome.
And then track 5 is Freak, very like straight up like pop, 70s pop sounding song, really cool. And then you have the big 30-minute epic World Without End, which they just played at the Morsefest concert a couple weekends ago, which is awesome. And even though it's 30 minutes long, again, I think it's actually super accessible. Like, it's one of those tracks that like you press play, and if you were just listening to it, you might not notice that it was just one song that was playing for that long, because there's lots of changes and there's lots of catchy choruses that go throughout it. Yeah, I think this album is really special. This was a great year for Neil Morse. Between this and Flying Colors, kind of like with the last year for you with Eels, Neil Morse is in my number 1 and number 2 slot for 2012. So yeah,
that's awesome, dude.
Really awesome.
Yeah, and you said that was the first album that came out like that you had just become a fan, so you're getting, dude, it's always so exciting when that happens.
Yeah.
And like you just mentioned, Eels, they've been around since 96, and the first album that I was like there for when it came out was not till 2018.
Wow.
Like, in a way you feel kind of gypped, but it's also kind of cool to go back and like rediscover what they did. So that rules.
Totally. In some ways I like it better because like it's so easy to get let down by a new album and you get like all hyped about it. It's true. It's almost nice to be like, hey, like this band's retired, I can go back and listen to all their stuff, and like there's no pressure about it.
This one sucks, that one sucks. Glad I wasn't there for that. Probably would have stopped listening to him. That's hilarious. A really good example of that is Death Cab for Cutie. Like, I'm so glad I came to them late because their first 3 albums are unlistenable. They're so bad.
Really?
Terrible.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny.
Awesome. All right. Well,
that was a good one, dude.
Yeah. Oh man, such a good year. Let me recap the countdown and since we did a little bit of a funny order this time. So Brian's top 5 albums from 2012. We had A Thing Called Divine Fits by Divine Fits, Here by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, From the Ground Up by John Fulbright, Holy Weather by Civil Twilight, and The Second Law by Muse. And then my top 5, we had Lunatic by Congos, The Second Law by Muse, The Death-Defying Unicorn by Motorpsycho, Flying Colors by Flying Colors, and Momentum by Neil Morse. Man, awesome. What a year. What a stacked year that is.
Overall, between us, that's probably our favorite year, like combined.
I think probably, yeah.
Yeah. And looking ahead, I've talked about this in the past too, but I'm getting to a point where I obviously started to branch out what I was listening to. Where in the past I've had a lot of repeat artists, going to see a lot of new stuff coming in.
Okay.
And this is a good time to go into my teaser for 2013. I said I was using comedy albums, but I'm bringing in some humor for the year 2013.
All right. Okay.
Not necessarily a comedy album. So hope that keeps you on your toes. You'll just have to wait and see.
Let's see what I get. So 2013, going off of what you said, there is only one artist in that top 5 that has been on my countdown before. So a lot of new artists on my end as well. And we've got a band from Asheville, North Carolina coming in at the number 4 slot. And that's an album that I actually found while I was doing research for our top 5 countdown. So I'm very excited about that one.
Sick, man.
Yeah.
I've got hip hop coming in too.
Oh,
first time for a little hip hop.
Excellent.
Double T's. Yeah.
I've got an album in my number 5 slot that features the typewriter as percussion on one of its songs.
Oh, no way.
So, yeah.
Dude, if people dig deep enough, they could probably find out what it is.
Yeah, sounds like good. Seriously good.
Yeah. Cool beans.
Excellent. Oh, that was a fun episode, man.
That's a really good one.
Well, awesome. I don't know what we'll do for our segment next time. We'll figure it out, or maybe there's one more Blue Turnip song to break down. We might do that, or we might do something else. Who knows? We get to do whatever we want.
Yeah, do what I want.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right, gang. Well, thank you for tuning in. We had a blast. Hopefully you had a blast listening to this, and you'll get to enjoy some of this awesome music that's out there. And we will see you next time when we talk about 2013.
Peace out.
Later.